Congress is moving to revive the U.S. Navy's next-generation carrier fighter, F/A-XX, after the Pentagon signaled the program could be frozen. A new draft defense spending bill for fiscal year 2026 adds nearly $900 million to keep F/A-XX alive, and it also tries to force the Department of Defense to finally choose a winning design. Here's what's happening and why it matters. The Senate Appropriations Committee released draft text for the FY 2026 Defense Appropriations Act, along with an explanatory report that includes detailed guidance. The House side had already previewed the bill with brief language about enhancing investments in F/A-XX, but the Senate documents make the intent crystal clear. Lawmakers want momentum, no more drifting. This comes after a confusing moment in December when the annual defense policy bill, the NDAA for fiscal year 2026, was signed into law. That bill was described by some lawmakers as providing full funding for both the Air Force's F-47 and the Navy's F/A-XX 6th-generation aircraft programs. But it turned out the Navy program only got what the Pentagon asked for, roughly $74 million. That's a far cry from what's needed to move quickly into full development. The reason this is such a fight is that the Pentagon's plan, revealed last June with the proposed FY 2026 budget, was to shelve F/A-XX indefinitely. Officials pointed to competition for resources with the Air Force's 6th-generation fighter effort, the F-47. In other words, the Pentagon didn't want two expensive next-gen fighter programs sprinting at the same time.
But Congress is now pushing back hard. According to the report accompanying the new spending bill, the agreement provides $897,260,000 above the President's fiscal year 2026 budget request to continue F/A-XX development. And it doesn't stop there. It directs the Secretary of Defense to obligate these new funds, plus any prior funding, specifically for awarding the Engineering and Manufacturing Development Contract, also known as EMD, to one performer. That's Washington speak for pick a winner and move forward. This matters because EMD is the phase where a program turns from designs and prototypes into the real work of building, testing, and maturing the aircraft toward fielding. It's a major gate in the acquisition process, and F/A-XX has been stuck before getting through it. F/A-XX, also called the Next Generation Fighter Program, is intended to replace the Navy's FA-18E-F Super Hornet and the EA-18G Growler over time. The Navy wants a jet that's far stealthier, with greater range, speed, survivability, and upgraded sensors. And Navy leaders have been describing it as more than just a fighter. They've talked about stronger intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capability, and even a battle management role, basically serving as a flying quarterback that can coordinate with uncrewed aircraft, including future carrier-based collaborative combat aircraft. Congressional frustration is also tied to what lawmakers say happened with earlier funding. The report notes that a prior funding law provided about $453,828,000 intended to match an acquisition schedule that assumed an EMD award around March of 2025. But instead of moving into a major milestone decision and awarding EMD, the department reportedly spent nearly all that money on contract extensions, and the report says those extensions produced minimal demonstrated value for the program.
So lawmakers are trying to tighten the screws. The draft guidance also directs the Secretary of the Navy to submit a report within 45 days of the bill becoming law. That report must detail the acquisition strategy and updated schedule for awarding the EMD contract, a revised development and fielding timeline to meet initial operational capability, the barriers that delayed execution of prior year funds, and a plan for how the newly appropriated money will be spent. And the draft legislation includes another major move. It compels the Secretary of Defense to obligate the funding to execute the EMD contract in a way that achieves an accelerated initial operational capability. It also blocks the use of FAXX money to pause, cancel, or terminate the program. In short, Congress is trying to make it legally and financially difficult for the Pentagon to keep FAXX in limbo. This political push has been building. Appropriators previously warned they were worried about the Navy's declining investment in strike fighters, especially when carrier air wings are operating at a high tempo globally. Lawmakers have also pointed to China's rapid expansion of advanced fighter production and its growing carrier aviation capabilities as a reason the Navy can't afford to delay modernization. The industrial competition is also part of the story. Boeing and Northrop Grumman have been competing for FAXX after reports indicated Lockheed Martin was eliminated. Boeing is also the prime contractor for the Air Force's NGAD, which adds another layer to concerns about resources and industrial capacity. Still, both companies have said they're ready to move forward if selected, and Boeing has argued the industrial base can support both sixth-generation efforts at the same time. Navy leadership has continued to publicly advocate for the program as well. Senior officials have said the capability is a warfighting imperative, especially for high-end scenarios in the Pacific, while also acknowledging it needs to be done in a cost-effective way that doesn't derail other priorities.
Now, none of this is final yet. The House and Senate still have to pass the consolidated spending bills, and last-minute changes are always possible. After that, President Donald Trump would have to sign the final version into law. But if this language survives the process, it could be the clearest sign yet that Congress intends to rescue FAXX from being gutted and force the Pentagon to finally choose the Navy's next carrier-based fighter. And the next big thing to watch is simple. Does the Department of Defense move quickly to award the EMD contract to a single winner, or does the program find itself stuck in limbo again?